So just wanted to say good morning and just welcome to everyone here. It's really wonderful to see so many of you here today. You braved the snow. Whether you've joined us downtown St. Paul or virtually, I just want to say welcome also to the first-time attendees and to the Little Moments Count partners who are joining us from the St. Croix River Valley. My name is Andrea Pierre, and I'm honored to serve as Minnesota Public Radio's new Community Engagement Director. It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to the 9th annual Little Moments Count Conference. So cheers to you all. While I'm new in my role here at NPR, I'm not new to Little Moments Count. And for the past 3 years, in my previous role as a station manager at KRSM Radio, I had the pleasure of diving deep into the role of early childhood topics when I interviewed many of the Little Moments Count partners who are here today. At KRSM, we work to amplify the voices, stories, cultures, and conversations happening in the communities that we served. I'm excited to continue that work here at NPR, including through partners with Little Moments Count. Being a community partner and host of the Little Moments Count program was a positive experience. I had the opportunity to bring resources to my community and share the wisdom of guests whose expertise and passion for those who needed it most. Every month, the conversations were more than just informative, They were a chance to uplift, inspire, and offer something that could really make a real difference in people's lives. As a parent, I know how hard it can be to find that trustworthy information that you need. That's why this partnership just really meant so much to me. It wasn't just about sharing knowledge. It was just about letting people know that they weren't alone, that someone cared, saw them, and was there to help. Being a small part of someone's journey, making them feel seen, making them feel heard. I think things like that just really fill my heart with gratitude, and I feel like it's just a mutual feeling that I got from my guests too on my show. Today, we are going to celebrate your collaborative efforts to build awareness and provide resources to parents, caregivers about the critical development that happens in the first 3 years of children's lives and the impact it can have in fostering development, all with the long-term goal of ensuring the best health and outcomes for our children. We have a great event planned for you today, including our keynote presentation by Gevonee Ford. He'll be talking about the topic of connecting literacy and identity to make every moment count. I see what you did there. It'll be followed by a panel discussion with some guest dads and father figures to share their experiences and insights. And again, we're excited to host the Start Early Funders Coalition to celebrate the annual Nancy Latimer Awards. And in a few minutes, we'll hear from Deshawn Drew, Senior Vice President of American Public Media Group and President of Minnesota Public Radio. And no claps for you. As well as Pahua Yang Hoffman, Senior Vice President of Government and Community Relations with Health Partners. She will be providing an overview of Little Moments Count activities since our last conference. But first, really excited to announce one special guest. Right there, we have St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter, fellow St. Paul Central graduate. Hey, Melvin.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Good morning. And whoa, as you just read those names, I was like, all the best people are here. This is such an incredible gathering of incredible leaders who I've learned so much from. It's so wonderful to see all of you and to be in this space. When I was working for Governor Dayton, I was in these chairs right along with you. We were at the Science Museum back then, and I've gotten to learn so much from all of you, and it's so central to why we are doing the work that we're doing the way that we're doing it in St. Paul. One of the things that we learned is exactly what you all tell us every single year, and that little moments count, that how we take care of our young people matters, that the momentum that we build in the first years of a young person's life build a momentum for our whole community, not just for their lives and for their family, but for our whole entire community. You are the ones who have taught me so much of that. One of the things that I learned at one of those conferences when I was working at the state is the power of college savings accounts. I was at a conference, again, when I was working in that role at the state, and I heard somebody cite research that said that children from low and moderate income families who graduate from high school with literally more than $1 in a college savings account are 3 times more likely to go. And when they do, they're 4 times more likely to graduate. It was kind of stunning for me, but then it made sense. And the way I explain this to people all the time is this: there are children born in St. Paul every day for whom high school graduation looks like a finish line. For their family, it looks like a finish line. For their siblings, it looks like a finish line. And $50 might not pay for a semester of college. $50 might not pay for a book of college. But $50 can inspire us to just sort of turn on that next street light past that high school graduation, start inspiring us to cast our imagination beyond high school graduation early. And don't you know that your career, your business, my career, every amazing thing started with an imagination being able to travel there before a person was. And so we're excited to have a college savings accounts initiative in St. Paul. We're excited to do the work in on behalf of young children that we are doing through our Parks and Rec and library programs. Here's the other thing I'll say about the college savings accounts. One of the things that I learned, again, at like literally at little moments count, is the phrase kindergarten surprises. And we heard kindergarten teachers say it when I was in that role. I'm sorry, the lieutenant governor just walked in. And literally, we have been at this event together as the executive director of the Minnesota Children's Cabinet and the executive director of the Children's Defense Fund Minnesota. So this is space that we've shared together before. It's always wonderful to see you. I'm going to hurry up and stop talking so you can go up. But all that to say is, one of the things we've heard is this phrase, kindergarten surprises. And I've heard kindergarten teachers all across the state and all across the country talk about these children who show up at school at 4 and 5 years old who have significant delays. And aren't you tired of hearing them say, if we had just known those children were out there, we could have done something to help that child. We could have gotten that child in early intervention. We could have connected that child to Help Me Grow. We could have connected that child to the early childhood screenings and all of these type of things if we had just known they were out there. My favorite thing about college savings accounts is when we say we're going to start every child with a college savings account when they're born, and we really mean it. Like in St. Paul, there is an application to fill out if you don't want your child to have a college savings account. That's how serious we are. But what it means is we know who those children are. What it means is we never again have the excuse that we didn't know those children were out there. We never again can say that. We have the opportunity to help all of our children, all of our families. And ain't that what this is about? Thank you. When I was working at the state, and since I've become mayor, people know I'm all about children. And one question I get is, hey, mayor, hey, children's cabinet guy, hey, council member, hey, founder of the St. Paul Promise neighborhood. Like, what's one thing? People always ask this. Like, what's one thing we can do to fundamentally change the odds for children and families in our country, in our city, in our state? And the good news is that I have an answer. And this answer won't surprise any of you. The one thing that I think we could do that could be most profound, most impactful to change the odds for children and families in our city, in our state, in our country, is stop pretending that the task is to find one thing to change the odds for children and families in our community. I have children. One of my children is here in the room right now. When it's children we love, we're never looking for one thing to change the odds for them. When it's children we love, we're looking for what? Everything that changes the odds for them. Every single thing that changes the odds for them. And this space celebrates leaders like you who know that, who are in the trenches doing that every day. This space brings into the space leaders like Gevonee Ford, leaders like our Lieutenant Governor who know that, who exemplify that, who embody that every single day. And this space is named for leaders who just demonstrated that in our community, in our state, and who are special and precious to our city of St. Paul. Who have been for decades. And so I just want to share this proclamation. I get out of the way because there's a Lieutenant Governor coming to speak. But the name Little Moments Count is precious to Minnesota, is precious to St. Paul. The name Latimer is especially sacred to us in St. Paul. And many people know the name George Latimer. But let me tell you, just as precious, just as sacred, just as impactful to our community is the name Nancy Latimer. Because she was a powerful voice for all of the things that we're here to talk about today. She was a powerful champion for making sure that we know and embody in our policy and in our investments that little moments count and invest in our youngest people. Whereas George and Nancy Latimer will be honored posthumously for their civic contributions by friends and relatives on the occasion of the Start Early Funders Coalition's 18th annual Early Childhood Awards ceremony, which will include the Nancy Latimer Early Childhood Champion Award at the Little Moments Count annual conference on December 11th, 2024. And whereas the Honorable George Latimer served as our beloved mayor of St. Paul for 14 years, our longest serving mayor, and Nancy Latimer served as a beloved senior program officer for the McKnight Foundation for over 20 years. Whereas during their long lives of service, George and Nancy Latimer embodied a dedication to improving the welfare of others and have earned the widespread respect and affection of people from across our community. Now, therefore, I, Melvin Carter, Mayor of the City of St. Paul, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, December 11th, 2024, to be George and Nancy Latimer Day in the City of St. Paul. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for honoring some giants in our community.
Thank you so much, Mayor Melvin Carter. So our next guest is also very distinguished, and we're just so happy to have her here. Peggy Flanagan is Minnesota's 50th Lieutenant Governor and a member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, is the highest-ranking Native woman in U.S. executive office, a dedicated advocate for youth. She served on Minneapolis Board of Education and led the Children's Defense Fund of Minnesota, working to uplift children across the state. Peggy's leadership also includes nearly a decade at Wellstone Action, continuing Senator Paul Wellstone's legacy. Elected to the Minnesota House in 2015, she represents her hometown of St. Louis Park. Peggy lives with her husband, Tom, daughter, and dog. We want to welcome you, and please come up. Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Buju, Peggy Flanagan, Adishnakaz, Gijuewa Damakoy, and Go, Goabagaga, Nikagna Dunjaba, Mangunde. My English name is Peggy Flanagan. My Ojibwe name is Speaks with a Loud and Clear Voice Woman. I'm a. It's just true. And I'm a member of the White Earth Nation. My family is the Wolf Clan, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. And I've been thinking a lot about this work that we've all done in partnership together for quite some time. And when my big brother, my older brother, Mayor Carter, talks about this work, I think what's powerful about telling that story and just how far we've come and how we have come to this place is that our roles have changed. Our occupations have changed, but our vocations remain consistent. Because this isn't just about some job, it is about the work. And when I was a brand new executive director at Children's Defense Fund, I remember taking Siobhan, who is my daughter, when she was 18 months, to Washington, D.C., and bringing her into the office of Marian Wright Edelman. And it's pretty incredible to be able to work for one of your heroes. And when we walked into that office, Siobhan immediately went to the bookshelf and started pulling books off the shelf and all over the floor. And I was like, oh no, play it cool, right? And I was like, I'm so sorry. And then Siobhan took out all these books and was like, blah, 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 and turning the pages. And Mrs. Edelman was like, oh, you have a reader. And it is this moment that sticks with me. And she said, you're doing a great job. Well, first of all, as any new parent will tell you, you are just winging it every day. And you're like, I hope this is right. And I've said this before, but as someone who majored in child development, right, Siobhan's dad was like, this is great. You're going to know exactly what you're doing. And I was like, I know when she's supposed to have object permanence, but I don't know how to raise a baby, right? And so we were doing all right. But it really was this moment where one of your heroes says, you're doing all right, but also that we simply need to lift up the young parents in our lives and say, you're doing a great job. And we are going to give you the tools that you need. We are going to pour support into those instincts that you have to talk to your baby in the grocery store, right? I would read issues of Us Weekly to Siobhan when she was a baby, simply to be able to stay on top of stars. They're just like us, but also so she heard the language, and that mattered. But as Mayor Carter said, right, it's not just one thing. And in Minnesota, we know that. We know that. And we also know, as Marian Wright Edelman taught me, that children do not come in pieces. And so that is how Governor Walz and I have tried to approach this work, in making sure that we're investing in early learning scholarships, in the Child Care Assistance Program, in paid family and medical leave, right? And making sure that our families have access to nutrition and workforce development, and that for the folks who are doing this work of lifting up our littlest Minnesotans, that work is treated with dignity and invested in, and that we are grateful for the folks who do that work every single day. We are also in a moment where things might feel a little weird. And I want to just acknowledge that. We don't know what is going to happen. But I can tell you, we do have a roadmap here in Minnesota for how we do this work, which is this. We work together across lines of difference, and we work together in a bipartisan way to invest in our littlest Minnesotans and their families. And I can tell you, Frank Forsberg and I have been doing this work together for a long time too. And it didn't matter if the DFL was in control or if the Republicans were in control, because we had work to do. And I like our odds this year, because we are building on the things that we have done together. And I can't tell you what will happen in Washington. I wish I could. But here in Minnesota, we have a commitment to simply continue to do the work that we've done and to tell the truth about our young people and why they deserve that investment. As a mom now of a 6th grader, I could be like, peace out. I got mine, right? See you later. But that is not what this is about, and that is not who we are as Minnesotans. As Minnesotans, we believe in caring for and investing in the next generation. And there may be people who tell you it's too much. It's not enough. And so that is our task and our job in this moment. When I think about Community Solutions Fund, I see Benny and Marita up there, who we did this work together. That these solutions come from communities themselves. They simply need investment. This is something that has also guided our work. So I do not want you to be discouraged. I want you to be encouraged in this moment because we know what we're doing. And we can demonstrate it and we can tell these stories. And all of you have an example of a parent and a child or a grandparent or an auntie who has done this work, and you are now seeing that child be successful. Those are the stories, and the facts and the figures and the statistics, we need that. I love data, I love research, I am a nerd, we're an NPR, it all makes sense. But the other thing that happens here is that they tell stories. And stories are how we have learned since time immemorial. Isn't that right, Luis? It's also weird when one of your heroes is in the audience and you're talking about that. But it's how we've learned since time immemorial, and will continue to be the way that we learn and we build support for the things that are sacred and that we love. So Chimigwech for doing this work on behalf of our littlest Minnesotans, those who are here now and those who will be here and who will choose us. We believe in Ojibwe culture that our children choose us to be their parents. So those children who choose us, that we will create a space for them that is welcoming and allows them to live their best life possible. So I will tell you, regardless of what my role or occupation is, I hope I have demonstrated to all of you that my vocation remains the same. So thank you for everything that you've done, and thank you for everything that we will do together. It's good work if you can get it. Thanks.
That's quite a way to start off this morning, huh? So thank you, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan and Mayor Carter, for taking time to be with us this morning and for joining us to celebrate this incredible statewide collaborative that's elevating awareness and support for early childhood development. I'm Dushan Drew, the president of NPR, and I'm glad to be with you all this morning. In my role, I also get to be sort of the lead NPR person on this partnership, and it's a deeply meaningful partnership to me. I was a Head Start kid who became an education reporter by choice. I didn't stumble into it. It was something I went to school knowing I wanted to do. So this is a mashup of so many things I care deeply about. I'm so grateful, both personally and on behalf of NPR, to be part of this amazing collaborative focused on building awareness about the critical brain development that takes place during the first 3 years of life. It was about 5 years ago that a Little Moments Count conference, the annual conference, that our then CEO, John McTaggart, announced the commitment of NPR, to formally join as a partner in this statewide initiative, and I'm so glad he took that step. This is an amazing partnership and really important work for our community. As a news organization and public service, Minnesota Public Radio is about helping people in our communities come together, making sure they're informed and inspired to be active members of their communities. That's the role public media plays, and it's a role NPR is proud to play as a partner in Little Moments Count. As Drea noted earlier, we do this by amplifying your voices in your work. This year, we've done this via our expanded community radio partnerships. We're so grateful to these partners who are hosting on-air conversations with Little Moments Count guests. Thank you to KRSM in South Minneapolis, to KMOJ in North Minneapolis, to WFNU in the Frogtown area of St. Paul, La Raza in the Spanish-speaking community, and Native Roots Radio for serving our indigenous communities. Your partnership makes a difference in bringing information about early childhood education to your audiences in your communities, and that partnership is at the core of the work we're all here to do together. We're also grateful to the many Little Moments Count community partners who've been guests on these stations and programs for sharing your expertise in your stories with your communities. Thank you all for leaning in with us. Now, speaking of amplifying voices, NPR is proud to amplify the vision of our friend Diane Halsey as part of our partnership with Little Moments Count through the Early Risers podcast. During season 5, at the beginning of this year, Early Risers focused on what's happening in early childhood ed classrooms when it comes to talking about race and identity. In our recently completed season 6 now, Diane talked with experts on the role of media in early childhood and its impact on how children see race and identity. In addition to releasing 13 episodes of the podcast this year, Early Risers hosted a live event in early August with Dr. Toni Sturdivant on her research around race and identity in early childhood classrooms. And Early Risers was live with NPR at the State Fair at our booth with a conversation about diversity and representation in children's books. It's been a full and exciting year. 2024 has also been a year of accolades and milestones for Early Risers. In September, Early Risers was named the 2024 winner of the Best Family and Parenting Podcast. Yeah. Podcast category by the Black Podcasting Awards. And to top it all off, 2 weeks ago, Early Risers reached the milestone of 100,000 downloads for the podcast. This is an incredible achievement and a testament to how much parents and caregivers want to learn about how to talk to young children about race and differences. In addition to NPR's sponsorship, or rather partnership role in Little Moments Count, our focus on early childhood has expanded in the NPR newsroom as well. Last year, you had a chance to hear from our early childhood reporter, Kyra Miles, who had recently started in a brand new position focused on early childhood education. That role was made possible with support from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota, and I'd like to thank them for that ongoing support. Kyra's stories have become an important part of NPR's coverage of what's affecting Minnesota families, and have included stories on childcare and the economics of early learning, what's happening at the state around childhood education, care funding, and licensing, as well as pediatric wellness and health. She's covered the gamut. And for 5 years now, NPR has worked to build awareness of Little Moments Count by airing educational spots on all 3 of our services, NPR News, The Current, and Your Classical NPR, so that parents and caregivers across the state are reminded of the important role they play in building the brains of the young children in their lives. It takes all of us to build a brighter future for Minnesota's littlest learners, and NPR is grateful to be in partnership with you all to make this happen. Now, I am pleased to bring up my dear friend, Pahua Yang Hoffman, who will share more about how Little Moments Count is growing.
Good morning. Thank you, Deshaun. We are so lucky to have NPR as a key partner in Little Moments Count. And thank you and the NPR team for hosting us once again in this beautiful space. So thank you. So I get the thank the funders and data slides, so I can't get any of this wrong. None of what we can do can be possible without our the financial support of our funders, who make the work of Little Moments Count possible. Thank you to our many partners for providing the monetary support needed to reach parents and caregivers in ways that help them support the critical development of our state's children. I also want to take this time to congratulate Diane Halsey again for her amazing award. We have been truly blessed with Diane Halsey's partnership on Little Moments Count. From the first days we were forming Little Moments Count to now, 9 years. It's really amazing to think that the wonderful Early Risers work all began with Diane's passionate writing about 2 pandemics, COVID-19 and racism, and after the murder of George Floyd on the Think Small blog. How wonderful to now have Diane's insight as Assistant Commissioner at the new Department for Children and Youth and Families. And while they've left because, you know, they're busy people, I want to thank Mayor Carter, who is here, and I want to thank Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, both of them for sharing their message. Here are my takeaways. Mayor Carter's, we can't change the odds for our children with one thing. From Lieutenant Governor, I don't know if you felt the goosebumps, but I did when she said our children choose us. And she's right that our children do not come in pieces. Did you see the moving father's stories that were playing right before we kicked off the conference this morning? I want to thank Dustin Parks. Is he in the room today? Dustin? Thanks to Dustin from the Minnesota Story Collective. And I also want to thank Clarence Jones, who I saw walk in. Where is he? Yes. I want to thank Clarence and his organization, Human. They worked together to collect stories from dads from many communities across Minnesota and shared them with us for this event today. The work of collecting dad and parent stories continue, so please use that QR code to share your dad and parent stories too. I want to welcome all of our attendees in the room, and I think we have about a little over 100 people in this room. We have 500 people online. This year, with Little Moments Count work expanding more deeply into the St. Croix Valley, we welcome guests joining us in person, like I said, and also there's a viewing party at Northwoods Technical College. You guys, we've made it. There's a viewing party. They are viewing us from New Richmond, Wisconsin, as well as guests, like I said, joining us virtually, 500 or so. I want to thank the St. Croix Valley Foundation and the St. Croix Valley Family Resource Center as our co-host for that event. I want to now share just a few quick updates, 2024 highlights with all of you. I'm going to just select a few here so that I can also get off the stage and move on with our program. This year, we've had over 8,000 Little Moments Count new parent education touchpoints, over 11,000 annual website visits, 120 YouTube videos. And we have an amazing partnership with NAS Early Childhood and Family Toolkits. The downloads and the social topics that have been pulled down from the website continue. In 2024, we also added 30 new partners and crossed the 100 partner milestone to 115. We are so humbled to be partnered with so many amazing organizations and individuals that help Little Moments Count social movement be effective and efficient. We do so much by the power of partnership and collective impact, doing more together than we could ever accomplish separately. A special thank you to the 10 new St. Croix Valley partners. As we continue to bring in new partners this year, we've worked on a new partner SharePoint to allow partners to much more easily access any Little Moments Count related resource that they might need. This helps us build towards sustainability as we continue to grow. As always, we extend a warm partnership hand to you and invite you to join us. You can do this easy by noting this on your post-event survey, and our teams will reach out. So that's my other to-do. Please fill out your post-event survey. All right, lastly, now I want to introduce, it's my pleasure to do so, introduce Allison Corrado, Senior Program Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota Foundation. She's also the co-chair of the Start Early Funders Coalition Public Policy Committee to present the 2024 Start Early Funders Nancy Latimer Award.
Good morning, everyone. We already had such a great start to this event with the mayor and the proclamation, and are just really excited to be here and partner with Little Moments Count again for the Nancy Latimer Awards. This is a really fun part of the agenda, not to take anything away from the dads. They're going to be great too. This is our 18th annual Nancy Latimer Awards, if you can believe it, 18 years. Who was there for the first Nancy Latimer Awards? Okay, we got some legacy people here. My name's Allison Corrado. I work with the Blue Cross Foundation, as Pahua said, and I co-chair the Start Early Funders Coalition. And we are a collaboration of 19 members of Minnesota's philanthropic community, representing foundations and partners all across the state of Minnesota that are all very focused and dedicated on improving the lives of children. And we are so thankful for all of our partners that are in the room today and those that are online and all of the funders who are making this work possible across the state. We want to invite everybody to join us on the next slide. Invite everyone to join the conversation today, the awards, the keynote, the panel. Use this hashtag, Little Moments Count, Start Early Funders, Latimer24. Share your thoughts. And keep the conversation going as folks are watching online. So I am proud to present several awards today to incredible early childhood leaders. The tradition of these awards has been inspired by the original award ceremony, which started, again, 18 years ago, called the Nancy Latimer Awards. And we have evolved these awards over time to honor the contributions of all of the numerous leaders in the early childhood field, the educators, the parents, the mentors, the funders, the leaders, all of the folks that make this work happen. And so our categories today that we're presenting awards for are the Parent Champion Award, the Provider Champion, the Organizational Leadership Champion, and the Legacy category called the Nancy Latimer Award. The Nancy is what we call it. And I'm so excited to present our first award is the 2024 Parent Champion Award, which I'm so happy to present. Oh, and yes, we have a receiving line. Please come up if you're a part of that, Betty. I'm so happy to present this first award to our Parent Champion, Nathan Nemeth, or Persia Erdrich, an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. She is the lead Ojibwe immersion teacher and trainer at Gukananeg and Dawad, or Grandma's House, which is a part of Ojibwe Motarida Oma Gidikimanag, or Let's Speak Ojibwe to Each Other Here on Our Land, or we call it OOG. And it is an academy for adults to learn the language from first speakers on the Fond du Lac Band of Superior Chippewa tribal community in northern Minnesota. Persia grew up learning Ojibwe words and phrases from her mother and went on to study the language at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. She was one of the founders of OOG and then went on to become an Ojibwe immersion teacher in elementary schools. And when her son, Patrick, was born, Persia knew she wanted to raise him to speak Ojibwe, but it was hard to do on her own and without peers to learn from and talk to. And so they joined Grandma's House in 2021. And Patrick, who was born in 2020, is the first child in their family to speak Ojibwe as his first language since his great-great-grandfather, which tears me up. It's incredible. So please join me in congratulating Persia again. Our next award is the 2024 Provider Champion Award, which goes to Deborah Shirebeck. Debbie has been an early childhood professional for nearly 3 decades, from having her own family child care home to directing early childhood education centers and teaching future early childhood educators in higher education, child development, and early childhood education courses. Debbie has been consistently involved in statewide and national committees that work towards the betterment of early childhood education as a whole, while continuing to shape the future of early childhood and for those who serve our littlest learners. She is an advocate, a mentor, an educator, and a caregiver, and is so deserving of this recognition, but she unfortunately was not able to be here today. But we're going to celebrate her anyway. Let's give her a big round of applause. Our 2024 Organizational Leadership Award goes to Erin Shea from the United Way of Northeastern Minnesota. In her 20 years working for this organization, she's served in multiple roles, including Community Impact Director, and has played a pivotal role in the organization's transition from a funding-only model to a community impact one. She has been instrumental in creating these programs, as well as establishing collaborations to increase critically needed resources like childcare, dental care, and to fill gaps for vulnerable populations like veterans, children who are food insecure, and families and individuals in crisis. And Erin was supposed to be here, but she's sick. So she is not able to join us today, but let's give her a round of applause. For the last 18 years, the Early Childhood Champions have been given the prestigious Nancy Award to honor the legacy of Nancy Latimer. And over the years, Nancy's husband, former mayor of St. Paul, George Latimer, would take some time on stage to say a few words about who Nancy was and why early childhood mattered so much to her. And sadly, Mr. Latimer passed away this year. And so we wanted to share a video of him briefly sharing his heart about his beloved Nance over the years. So we have a little video.
When she spoke, she said to the assemblage that to do the right job for all of our children, then we have to have a good heart to start with, but a good head that thinks about good outcomes and measures them. And so it has to be head and heart. And I'll never forget that. And that was Nancy.
And we want to take just a moment to honor both George and Nancy's legacy and memory and say thank you to the family members that are here today and those that are joining online as well. So for our final award, I would love to invite past winners of the Nancy Award to stand and let us recognize you, Denise. Okay. And this applause goes out to all of you that are joining us virtually as well. This award is presented each year to a recipient that embodies Nancy's tireless commitment to an impact on Minnesota's youngest children. It recognizes champions' unique lifetime legacy in the early childhood education field. Awardees exemplify an unwavering dedication and outstanding contributions to the well-being of young children, garnering statewide impacts through program innovation, policy, advocacy, and mentorship. And our awardees have demonstrated persistence, humility, vision, courage, tenacity, servant leadership, humanity, and compassion. And I am so honored to announce this year's winner of the 2024 Nancy Latimer Award, Carolyn Smallwood. Carolyn joined Way to Grow in 2004 and is a leader in home visiting that supports families with children in Minnesota and the surrounding suburbs with a team of educators who provide year-round culturally and linguistically responsive services to children and their families, prenatally to grade 3. And we're going to invite Carolyn up to say a few words.
Wow. Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning. You know, this is like coming home. I remember 18 years ago, or let me step back a few minutes, 20 years ago, when I started in the early education field. And I was invited to participate on many coalitions, and Start Early Founders was one of them, among many minds and other organizations. So I am honored, I'm shocked to receive this award. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Over the last several years, this has been a journey for me. When I began this journey in this field, I couldn't have imagined the profound impact it would have, not only on children and families, but what the work has done for me personally as a person, to be honest with you. Early education is about planting seeds of curiosity, confidence, and resilience in our youngest children. It's about giving every child an equal opportunity to succeed in school and life. It's about lifting up our parents and families in these communities that are in need each and every day. And the folks that has been in this room that has stood up for our families, it blows my mind away that we have not given up on our children and families. Thank you, Minnesota. Thank you, Minnesota. I'm gonna be real quick. I wanna thank the dynamic team of Way to Grow who's worked in this community so many years. Little Moments Counts, NAS, other nonprofit organizations in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Gevonee, thank you for hanging in there. I knew you from way back as well, okay? I know a lot of you from way back. We stood up and we worked hard, been up at the state capitol lobbying for our kids, okay? Lobbying for them. So I remember many of times where we felt like, wow, are we doing this work and not? But you know what? I'm seeing progress. I'm about to retire. I retire in 2 months. But it's not over. I want to tell you, I'm not gone yet. I'm going to be still working on the behalf of our families and children. My call to action is this, and that we must think about this. My call to action is that we must continue the work that has been done, but also including our parents, while holding on to our strong value system that education is the superpower for all of our children. That's the superpower, okay? So, as I said, I'm still gonna be at the bus stop picking up folks and bringing them on board to education. I'm never gonna give that up. So thank you very much. I'm honored to receive this. Much love.
And with that, congratulations, Carolyn, and to all the awardees. This concludes the Start Early Funders Coalition's 18th Annual Early Childhood Award Ceremony. A big congratulations to all of our awardees. Let's finish off with one more round of applause, and I will turn it over. I'll turn it over to Andre Dukes.
Good morning, everyone. It is so good to be in the room with so many brilliant people. Give yourselves a nice hand. All of my early childhood peeps, I just want to say that I'm just honored to walk alongside you in this great work on behalf of our children every day. There's so much I want to say, but I'm going to get out of the way and reserve a lot of my comments until we do the panel. But it brings me great pleasure to introduce our speaker today. This is my friend and comrade in the cause for children. Over the past 40 years, Gevonee Ford has worked in the field of early childhood and K-12 education, specializing in program development, nonprofit management, and education policy. Gevonee has been at the forefront of progressive education in Minnesota, serving as a teacher, trainer, program director, and community organizer. His work has been recognized at national, state, and local levels. He has received numerous awards, including being named a 2012 White House Champion of Change under the Obama administration. That's huge. And so please help me welcome, at this time, none other than Gevonee Ford.
Well, Hotep, and greetings. Somebody look at the person sitting next to you and say, "This moment." This moment. Oh, y'all act like you can't hear me. I said, "This moment." This is our moment. I am truly humbled and honored to be amongst you all in this moment, this critical moment. A time where we have the opportunity to practice self-determination and take charge of our children's education, their healthy development, and to ensure that they know who they are. And so I'd like to thank and acknowledge the planners of this event, my brother Frank and Thea and brother Andre and all of the coalition members. Thank you for all the work that you do. I also want to acknowledge and thank my parents who are watching online. Yes. Apostle Leslie Ford and Pastor Rose Ford, and my family. I'd also like to acknowledge my incredible team at NIDCAD. NIDCAD is the Network for the Development of Children of African Descent. All of my staff, my team members, my NIDCAD family. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to also acknowledge a host of community elders who have poured into me, provided direction, provided correction, provided support, and a host of ancestors. Y'all know what an ancestor is, right? Someone who has passed on, but leaves a legacy that lives in each of us. Recently, the passing of a giant, Nikki Giovanni. And so I'm evoking her spirit, her strength, her insight, her wisdom into this space with us. And I'd like to also acknowledge the hundreds, if not thousands, of children and families that I've had the privilege and honor to serve. Our children have been instrumental in my education. They have taught me who I be and who I need to be for them. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. We're going to go there in a minute. But I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledged those that have been a part of my journey and continue to be a part of my journey. Now it's time for us to acknowledge each other in this space. So I want you to affix your eyes, put your eyes on somebody across the room. I see you, Brother Pierre. Put your eyes on somebody across the room and give them a shout out. Tell them, "I see you." I think we can do a little better than that. Everybody stand to your feet. Come on. All right, I want you to look on the other side of the room And I want you to lock eyes with somebody and let them know, I see you. Now lock eyes with somebody else and let them know, I see you. Tell them this is our moment. All right, let's acknowledge ourselves. So there's a South African greeting, sawubona, which means I see you. But it's so much more than just seeing each other in the physical. Sawubona recognizes that each of us come from family, come from a community, and are connected with a host of ancestors. And so when we greet with sawubona, it means I see all of you. And I know you are not your condition, so it doesn't matter what you're going through, you're going to make it. Because I see you. So why is this important? We're here to talk about making every moment count, which means we have to see our children. We have to see one another. We have to see ourselves. And so my intentions for this small talk is to share some of the lessons that I've learned and some experiences that I've had over these 40, Brother Andre said 40 plus years. My goodness gracious. It has been quite a journey. And so my intent is to share some of what I've learned and to encourage each and every one of us to see ourselves and see our children. Last week, I was leaving the office and on my way home and decided to stop at a local grocer because I didn't feel like cooking. And I got together my little things and got to the checkout line, and there was a young man checking me out. He had to be in his early 20s. And so he rang me up and he said, "Would you mind if I asked you a question?" I said, "Sure." He said, "If you could tell yourself something like the younger you, like 10 years ago you, or even when you were a child, what would you tell the younger you?" I went, oh okay, all right, let me switch gears, right? Because my mind was on let me get home, right? But I'm so grateful that that young man asked me that question. What I shared with him is I would tell myself to be a little more patient with yourself. I'll say that one more time. I need to hear that again. Be a little more patient with yourself and be present in the moment. Somebody needed to hear that. And so what I hope to share today is what does it actually mean for us to be present in the moment? I was going to share a little bit about our organization, but I'll invite you to do your own research, right? So our website is NDCAD, ndcad.org. So please visit our website, do your research. There's a QR code there, so for y'all that know how to do that with your phones, go ahead, go at it. Right? But we've been around for 27 years, isn't that right, Susan? 27 years, right? We were established in 1997. We were created by the community, right? Our community came together and said, what do we need to build in order to learn from our children and families about what works? And how do we help our families make critical connections between literacy and identity? And so we've developed a host of programs that work with the whole family, the whole child, the whole community. And so please check out the website, give us a call, and come visit us. But I want to talk about the moment. Being present in the moment. Being present to the moment. We know that we want to be there for our children. Each and every interaction, each and every little moment. But the question becomes, who do we be in those moments? And more importantly, what do we bring to those moments? It starts with us, the adult villagers. Yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but if we, as adult villagers, parents, uncles, aunties, next door neighbors, community educators, childcare providers, if we are not studying ourselves, we can miss the moment. There's a couple of quotes from two of my favorite artists, Samara Joy, one of my new favorites, and ancestor John Coltrane. So Tamara, in her, I keep calling the sister Tamara, Samara, in her most recent album, Portrait, she asked the question, where do you find your peace of mind? Is it in the places that you go or the people you meet? In time, keep living, like the elders say. Keep on living, because in time you will realize that everything will change, but will your peace of mind remain? What do we bring to those moments? Do we bring peace? Do we bring intention? Do we bring thoughts? Ancestor John Coltrane, his album Love Supreme. Did you know there's lyrics that he wrote to Love Supreme? He said, one thought can produce millions of vibrations. Elder Mahmoud El-Qadi is always reminding us that thoughts represent ideas, and ideas run our worlds. Our thoughts represent ideas that manifest and come to life in these moments. Who do we be in the moment? And what do we bring in the moment? As I was thinking about these moments, I remember a story, a time back many, many years ago when I was a classroom teacher with 4- and 5-year-olds, right? It was at a child care program that they would call, quote unquote, a special needs program. But on this particular day, I had my lesson plan. We had our regimen, all the children, all 20 of my 4-year-olds. They knew the rituals and the routines. I'm also a musician, I'm a singer. The night before this particular day, I had a gig. It was a Sunday night, right? We threw down, y'all, right? But I was the opener. Any child care providers out there, y'all know what I'm talking about. I was the opener, which means we open at 6:30 a.m., which means I need to be there at 6:15-ish, right? So I was there on time. So the routine is we have our morning sessions, all the different activities, the lessons and all that, and then it's lunchtime. And so we know the routine. We eat lunch. We clean up, and then we go to the story carpet before bathroom and nap time, right? On this particular day, lunch was off the chain. They all knew the ritual, the routine, eat, then clean up. They wasn't having none of it. They literally were bouncing off the walls. I raised my voice, didn't work. I lowered my voice, didn't work. I had to start questioning myself. Then finally, I gave up. I told my assistant, watch the door. I crawled underneath one of them lunchroom tables, crossed my arms, folded my legs, and not less than 10, 15 seconds later, little Mia, I see her peeking underneath the table. Then she sat down next to me. I didn't look at her. I didn't say nothing. She started rubbing my shoulder. And then little Ian joined and started rubbing my other shoulder. Literally, in less than a minute, all 20 were trying to get under that table to take care of me. I simply said, "Are we ready to clean up now?" And they all got up, cleaned up, and went to the story carpet. And I went, my God, that worked. So why am I sharing this story? The children taught me a life lesson. Every interaction that we have with our children, we are bringing what we just went through. Good, bad, and different. But who we be in these moments makes a difference. Dr. Naeem Akbar, he said to us how we as parents feel about ourselves gets transmitted into our children. We as early childhood educators, K through 12 educators, next door neighbors, how we see and understand ourselves gets transmitted into the hearts and minds of our children. So here's one of those lessons that we've learned. We have to learn from and with our children. It's not a one-way. We have to learn from and with our children. As our Lieutenant Governor said, our children choose us at the direction of the Creator of all. Because we need something from the Creator. And He gives us the children to teach us. But is that our mindset? How do we train ourselves to listen and learn from our children and with our children? There's a great book that a friend of mine recommended, and I've started reading it. It's called 4 Pivots by Sean Ginwright. Somebody, okay, all right. So there's a chapter on care, and he talks about the difference between transactional relationships and transformative relationships. Let me say that one more time. There's a difference between transactional relationships and transformative relationships. Let's bring it to our kitchen, right? A transactional relationship includes things like we have to cook the meal so you can eat. We have to clean the kitchen, which means washing the dishes. We have to have lunch and then our story time, right? If we have a pet, we have to walk the pet. You know, so all of those things, which are an important part of life, but they're transactional. I do this because I care for you, and then you do this because you care for me, right? Transformative relationships recognizes that I give and I receive, I learn and I teach. It's transformative. He tells a story about he and his wife and their newborn son who had colic, incessant crying, night after night after night. So, of course, they consulted with the doctor, consulted with their family members, and a whole bunch of friends who all told them what to do to solve the problem. He said the only thing worse than the incessant crying was all the advice he was getting. But then he reached out to his mentor, and his mentor listened and listened and listened, and then he finally stopped. He said, Sean, maybe the baby is okay, and maybe the colic is about you and your wife and y'all's relationship, you all's relationship, right? I come from the country, my family's from the country, so indulge me. He said, if you shift your focus from the crying and begin to focus on the relationship with your wife, perhaps the colic will diminish. And so they began to talk and pay attention to how their relationship, who's going to attend to the crying baby now? And then, okay, you need, I'm going to start looking out for you while you look out for me, and we're going to make sure that together the baby's okay. Transformative relationship. The baby was trying to teach them something about themselves so that the baby could in turn get all that he needed. Y'all. Thank you, bro. Thank you for that over there, right? And thank you. I'm the eldest son of 2 preachers in the black church tradition. So if you find that I'm repeating myself, is because I need to hear a signifier, an amen. I need to hear somebody talk to me. There's a difference between transactional relationships and transformative relationships. Transformative relationships recognizes that we are in this together. Key lesson: we have to train ourselves to learn from and with our children. But life be lifing, right? And so we're all gonna face many moments where life seems overwhelming. The baby's crying is a little bit too loud, and I don't know what to do in this moment. The children are bouncing off the walls, and I don't know what to do in this moment. That's a very human thing. And we have to recognize that in those moments when life seems overwhelming, we have to recognize root issues that can take seed and root in ourselves. In our organization, we've learned some things about root issues. There's 2 root issues that don't often get talked about. I'm not talking about economic situations. I'm not talking about self-doubt is a root issue. Individualism and isolating behaviors. Shame, I don't want nobody to know I'm going through this, right? So in those moments, we're trying to be present in the moment, but we bring in a whole bunch of stuff to the moment. Because we're human, self-doubt in those moments can take hold and rule the day if we're not conscious, if we're not looking for it. And individualism, we have to counter it by connecting ourselves with community elders, with family members, with those individuals who see a bigger us than we can see. In our parent education program, it's called Parent Power Literacy and Advocacy Workshops, we ask the parents to do what seems like a simple exercise. We give them a handout with concentric circles with the parent and the child in the center. And we ask them to do an inventory. Make lists of folks in your circles. And where would you place them? Closest to you, all the way out through the outer rings. And why have you placed them there? And what process did you use to assess and evaluate those that you're choosing to surround yourself with? I'm talking about countering individualism and isolating behaviors. We've learned about the importance of being intentional. One of the parents and also one of our team members at NIDCAT said, I'm finding that I have to go through this evaluation assessment process routinely because sometimes the people move in and out of those circles. But the question remains, who do you trust? It's going to tell you the truth, tell you like it is, and help you see yourself beyond whatever condition life throws at you, and hold you accountable to the gifts, the talents, that the Creator gave to you, including your children. So, who do we be in these moments? And what do we bring to these moments? We've got to study ourselves, learn together with and from our children. Now, I want to talk about this literacy piece here. I love this particular quote because it speaks to transformative literacy, right? I think we're all familiar with transactional literacy, which is about mastering all the literacy skills so that you can get that good grade. Transactional, right? Being a proficient reader so that you can read the medicine bottle label and make sure that you're not doing yourself harm, right? It's transactional. Nothing wrong with that, but it's transactional, right? Read the HR employee handbook so you know what your responsibilities and obligations are and what your agreement is with your employer, and you got to understand it. It's transactional. The scholars say literacy practices are actually an important medium through which we interact with our human environment, and by which we directly and vicariously contemplate who are we at any one point in time, who we might hope to be in the future, who we fear being, and who we expect to be. So we're talking about what is transformative literacy. So what are these literacy skills? We've come to understand 7 critical literacy skills. Of course, it's the reading, it's writing, it's speaking, it's listening, it's viewing, and it's thinking and applying. And we need our children to be excellent in all 7. Because all the transactional components of literacy will happen automatically. If they're proficient in all 7 of these literacy skills, the grades gonna happen, right? Getting the job and the advanced promotions, it will happen, right? But these 7 literacy skills are also critical for self-study and forming healthy cultural identity. In other words, if I cannot read, how will I read the books about me and my people's contributions to the world? If I cannot understand what I'm reading and make meaning from what I read, how can I understand my responsibility to carry on the legacy of literacy and contributions to the world? Transformative. I'll never forget, one of our programs is a intensive reading intervention. All of our tutors come from our community. The children that we primarily serve are African and African American children. But years ago, there was one of our cohorts running, and Miss Gully, one of our community elders, an incredible tutor and instructor, she shared a story with Sister Susan. Wave your hand up in the air. She shared a story with Sister Susan and I. There was a little boy in session, and I forget which they were working on the comprehension skill, asking questions, right? And so they were learning, well, what is a question? Who, what, why, when, right? Not a statement. You know how our children do that, a statement. Well, not just our children, but right. So they were learning about asking questions and how to engage in questioning with a text. And so little brother, he put his hand up, he said, I have a question. Why are all the people in this book brown like me? Learning from our children, embedded in their questions is instruction for us, right? So what did his question tell us? Is that he was trying to make the connection between these 7 literacy skills and studying who he is. It's vital. what we know is that we have to study our children. So we ask the parents to have a journal, do some observation, right? Be a researcher. Actually study your children, whether they're 6 months old or 16 years old. What are you noticing about these 7 literacy skills in your children? And what we continue to hear year after year is that mom or dad with a 6-month-old, oh my God, he's focusing on me. Lieutenant Governor talked about permanency, right? That's literacy. But are we studying our children enough to name it? If you can't name it, you can't teach and you can't support it. And more importantly, mirroring it back, giving our children the language so that they can see their literacy strengths. Even if they're struggling with reading and writing, are they thinking? Are they speaking? Are they viewing? Well, let's lift those strengths up because they can build on them. When we help our children make these connections between literacy and identity, it actually shows up in their academic performance. What you're looking at is the findings from a 5-year study that our organization was able to engage with the University of Minnesota along with some of our community partners. We looked at how our 9-week reading intervention, how did it impact the trajectory of our children's reading skills. The gray shaded area represents our 9-week intervention, right? Which is about the literacy identity connections. But we wanted to see where they were at before the intervention. So 6 weeks before they started our Sankofa reading program, we administered weekly assessments called FAST, right? Many schools and districts around the country use them. So every week for 6 weeks, we assessed them to find out where they were at. Then when the program started, we administered our program assessments of skills and independent guided reading levels. And then 6 weeks after our 9-week program, we resumed weekly FAST assessments. What the study found is that before our Sankofa literacy identity intervention, decodable word skills were actually on the decline. But something happened when they began to, why are all the books that we reading look like me? Oh, why do I read? We have a ritual, call and response that we open each one of our reading sessions with. It's called Why Do I Read? And the children say Sankofa, which means we got to look back to know where we've been, to know where we're going. But why do I read? Because I am great. My people are great. The greatness of my people is in me. I will read, study, and learn my history and my heritage. I will look back to know where we've been, to know where we're going. I will lift up, celebrate, and carry on the legacy of greatness. Oh, this is why I read. It plants that seed in them that counteracts self-doubt, that counteracts individualism. You come from a tradition that is steeped in literacy, and you must know it so that you can carry on that tradition. So that's what happened during that gray shaded area. After the program, decodable word skills were increasing after the program. School attendance before the program was sporadic, but after, school attendance was more consistent and increasing. Literacy identity connections. But it's all about the moment. Just want us to think about how Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings challenges us to think transformatively. She asks the larger question, literacy for what? Literacy is for seeing, knowing, and being fully human in this world. Literacy is for liberation, literacy is for self-determination, and literacy is for reclaiming indigenous and ancestral knowledges. Literacy is about knowing who we are, studying ourselves, and it's for all of us, from birth to death. I want to close with a challenge and a directive that has been passed on to me by my parents, community elders, and so many others. We must speak to the moment. We're always already speaking to the moment. It's a very human thing. Are the words coming out of our mouth complaining about the moment? Is it reinforcing the weight and toil, and turmoil that we're experiencing in the moment? Many times, yeah, because we're human. It sucks. Some moments actually don't feel good. And that's okay. But we must speak life to the moment. So in those times when self-doubt is trying to creep in, it's knocking at the door, and I'm feeling unsure of myself, look at your neighbor and say, I might be feeling unsure, but I'm clear. Those times when you might feel weak, look at somebody else and tell them, there's times that I feel weak, but I say I'm strong. Those times when I'm confused, I speak, I have wisdom. We have to speak to the moment. I want you to picture back in your mind that graph with the downward trajectory. Before the cultural literacy intervention, reading skills were on the decline. What would that decline look like if our children come in the early learning program, day one of kindergarten, day one of first grade? What if we're talking about an early start, a cultural beginning? That decline would not be there. Talk about a head start. If we train ourselves and lead by example, equipping our children to study themselves, to engage in transformative relationships, to assess their inner circles at kindergarten. They're doing it already. But one thought can produce 1,000,000 vibrations. Are we teaching our children to recognize their thinking and that their language shapes their reality? The number one goal for this moment is for us to produce thinking human beings. I want you to look at your neighbor and tell them, say, this moment. Come on, y'all. This moment. This is our moment. And we standing in it. Hotep, thank you.
Well, this is the altar call now. Does anyone want to make a decision for children? What an amazing presentation. I'm all fired up. I don't know about you, but I'm so inspired. And every time I hear Gevonee speak, I'm even more inspired to just do what I need to do for children and to be present. A few things that I took away from that is that we have to see each other and see our children. But coupled with that is, what does it mean to be present in the moment. We can't be present if we don't see each other. If I'm not present, I can't see you. And if you are not present, then you can't see me. And so the other thing is, what do we be, or who do we be in the moment, and what do we bring in the moment? The moment is so important. Little moments count, and it doesn't have to be long moments as long as we bring our full self to the moment and allow our children to be their full selves in the moment. So powerful. And then how parents feel about ourselves gets transmitted to our children. How powerful is that? How do you feel about yourself as a parent? And parenting is hard, and sometimes life can be challenging. And you have to think about, what am I transmitting to my children? And do I have enough fortitude to rise above my current circumstance to meet the needs of my children in the moment? I heard that. And the other one, and I'll end here, is learn from and with our children. And when you said that, it reminded me of a conversation that I had with my granddaughter when I asked her, "Are you cold?" And she was like, "Yes, I'm cold." I said, "Like a refrigerator?" She said, "I don't know. I'm not a refrigerator." I said, "Well, that was so brilliant. I don't identify with a refrigerator, but I can tell you I'm cold." So we have to learn from our children. She taught me that day. But today we are so excited to have a group of fathers that are here with us. And I just want to introduce them, and they can come up as I do so. Can you hear me? Am I supposed to be talking into this? Okay. So first of all, I'm delighted to have my friend and brother, Guy Bowling. Guy is a member of the leadership team at the office of the Ramsey County Attorney John J. Choi. As a former director of the Father Project, he has overseen substantial multiple grants funded by the Department of Health and Human Services, Administration for Children and Families, and the Office of Family Assistance. Guy brings over 30 years of experience working with low-income, unmarried, non-custodial fathers and fragile families. As a nationally recognized fatherhood leader, speaker, Mr. Bowling has delivered more than 450 fatherhood trainings, keynotes, consultations, and workshops with public-private agencies in 30 states and 2 countries over his 30-year career. That is amazing. Guy also was selected as a 2020 Bush Fellow from the Bush Foundation Fellowship Program. And the best part is, Guy is a dad to 2 adult children and 2 amazing grandchildren. Would you receive Guy Bowling at this time? And next, I am happy to introduce to you Kyle VanBlaircom. I hope I got that last name right. Thank you. So Kyle focuses on supporting families as a peer support specialist, recovery coach for Northwest Passage, a nonprofit organization based out of northwestern Wisconsin. Kyle is also a full-time student currently in the Health and Human Service program with aspirations to work in social work. Kyle also is the founder and host of a recovery podcast called Peer Perspectives. Kyle also helps to lead community recovery together support cafes, and Kyle is father to 2. His daughter, I don't know why I'm getting caught up here. He has a daughter with a 2-year-old and a son that is 4. Kyle and his family live in River Falls, Wisconsin. Let's receive Kyle at this time. When I first met Kyle in the lobby, I got it wrong, and I'm still getting it wrong. Kyle, see me afterwards. I must apologize. I'm sorry. And lastly, we have Xavier Vazquez. Xavier is currently Executive Director of Central. Tyrone Guzman. Xavier Vazquez, an accomplished leader in nonprofit management and advocacy. He has made significant strides in fostering inclusive and impactful community programs. Currently, as Central, Tyrone Guzman's executive director, he works to intentionally serve the Latina community directly with different services. In his previous role as the executive director of SPNN St. Paul, Minnesota, Xavier was recognized for becoming the organization's first BIPOC and queer executive director in its 39-year history. Xavier's leadership extends to various boards, including the Minnesota Council of Nonprofits as their co-vice chair and Mentor Minnesota. His selection as a member of the Catalyst for Change team, 12 professionals chosen from different states to expand social capital for youth in the U.S., further underscores his influence and commitment. And what's most important about Xavier is he is a dad to two energetic children. Would you help me to receive Xavier Vazquez?
All right, now that you know I can't read, I need a tutor. No, I'm just excited to, be here with these extraordinary fathers and professionals. Let's just say, these are, folks that are playing multiple roles and still looking out for the well-being of other children. And I just want to honor, first of all of the dads around the world that sacrifice every day and make the hard choices to be there for their children and to show up and to be in those moments and to be their full selves in those moments. And we don't give fathers enough credit a lot of times for the work that they do on a daily basis while holding multiple roles. And so I just want to celebrate all of the fathers and bring them into the room around the world today. This conversation that we want to have is really about our relationship with our children. And each of us represent different communities. But in each of those communities and even in each of our families, we have values that we uphold and we try to instill in our children. And so I want to open up with this question of values. What are some values that are important to fathers in your community? And let's start with Guy.
All right, start with me first. All right. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. All right, it's been quite the morning so far. I can't tell you, if we was in church, it would be tambourine time. All the good energy that's in the room today. But I would have to say thank you again. I have to take you on the road with me. That was an incredible introduction. I would say a lot of the fathers emphasize everything from responsibility, being resilient as a father, but also frame of reference of their own dads and the work that they do on themselves as well as with their kids. And so a lot of that comes from that. And I think there's also a sense of cultural pride. They really have a lot of pride in terms of where they come from and their family traditions. And also would say in terms of values, they want to instill a sense of high identity, right, and belonging to their children. And that's grounded not only in the importance of perseverance, but also teaching them how to overcome adversity, because life is going to throw them many different obstacles, many different challenges. And so just respecting what that role is, respecting what that responsibility is, and most importantly, instilling that in their kids, because they know that that's something that they want to continue for a lasting legacy.
Absolutely. And, I think the research is clear that one of the ways in which fathers really add value to the development of children is through problem-solving skills.
Absolutely.
really allowing them to take risk, but coaching them through the moment, right? And so I think a lot of what you just said speaks to that.
Yeah, real quick, and I don't mean to continue, but I'll give everybody else, but I can be a little long-winded sometimes, but I know we only got so much time. But I think about that when I think about my own daughter. So 2 of my biggest accomplishments is I'm a father of 2. And I can remember when my daughter, she showed her independence and spirit at an early age. I mean, when she was like 3 years old. And for those of us in the audience that have daughters, just by a show of hands, anybody got daughters in here? Okay. Whew, we in trouble. But I learned a lot by having a son and a daughter. But I remember my daughter, I was supposed to take her to the mall one day, and I went in her room, and I said, you got to clean up, your toys and get dressed, and we'll go to the mall. And then she's like, okay. And I came back like 5 minutes later. She hadn't cleaned up her toys. She hadn't gotten dressed. I was like, well, I know she heard what I said, but I'll give you 5 more minutes. Clean up your toys and get dressed. I'll be right back. I'm thinking to myself, us dads with daughters, we know, put my foot down. I told her, I'll be right back. So you need to have this stuff cleaned up. Right. I came back 10 minutes later. She still hadn't had anything cleaned up. She still wasn't dressed. She was 3. Right. So I really put my foot down and I said, you know what? If I come back in this room and these toys that are on the floor, any toy I see is mine. Okay. Is mine. And I'm going to be right back, and you need to get dressed. I came back, and I'm thinking, I told her. Because anytime you got a daughter and you're a dad, you want to say mean things, but it doesn't come out that way. It doesn't come out that way. It comes out as sweetheart and cupcake and honey and please and all that stuff you never even said. So anyway, I came back. She was dressed. She was brushing the hair of her. She was brushing her doll's hair, and half of the toys were gone. They were picked up. She said, "Dad, I'm ready to go." She said, "I picked up the toys I wanted. You can have the rest."
Again, we can learn from our children, right?
100%. 100%.
Kyle, I saw you smiling. It seems like you've been through a little bit of this as well. Talk to us about some of the values that you have, both in your family and in the community.
Yeah, so a lot of good things already mentioned, but I guess the big thing for me and for my family is just that feeling safe, and I know a lot of the other families in our community feel the same way. That safety, feeling like also a sense of belonging, feeling like you belong, having a community. It's really important. So
yeah, safety and belonging. That's so important. Why do you feel that is important for your children?
I think it's just knowing that you have other people to rely on, whether that's family or friends. We had to kind of build our own community because it wasn't our family necessarily. So we had to, build that up, build that network. So
Yeah, that sense of belonging. And in early childhood, we talk about the ecosystem, and, we have to be intentional about building those structures for our children and building community because that's so important to their long-term development, right? Xavier, what about you?
Well, thank you, everybody. I want to touch a little bit more on what you mentioned, Kyle, about your family not necessarily being here, right? And I struggle with that a lot because I have my dad in Puerto Rico, and he's my biggest confidant. So when I go through all these steps as a father, I go back to I wish my dad was here with me, right? But I don't mind. I hope you don't mind me referencing my notes. As someone with ADHD, I need a lot of visual guidance. Also. What I'm gonna talk about today too is not representative of each case of our fathers in our Latina community. This is what I've learned from parenting in the U.S. Versus what I've learned about parenting in our countries of origin, which can look very different, right? But then what you mentioned, what Mr. Ford mentioned, actually, presence. These are values that are very important in our community. Presence, not only physical, but also mental and emotional in the moment. Intentionality, to be aware and understand our kids' needs and address them. Then being vulnerable. That is something that has not been seen historically in our community. And it's important for them to know men cry too. We don't need to be tough. And we also have a mental health aspect that we have to take care of ourselves. Affection, to show our kids that manhood doesn't come from just holding back your feelings, and then trust, which is something that I continuously try to build with my kids. Even when I don't like the truth, they tell me the truth, and I navigate through that. But if they see a negative reaction to their truth, then also that builds that, now I'm not gonna tell my dad because I see this negative reaction coming. So it's a difficult balance to maintain, but those are the main values.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so good. It makes me think about attunement and, the importance of letting children know that what you feel, I feel. Like, we are the same in many ways. And so you can trust me and you can feel safe with me. And, attunement, I think about vibing too. Like, we can vibe together
Right.
as a father and a daughter or son. But, to bring the conversation a little bit closer to Little Moments Count, what role do you see fathers playing in the health and well-being of their children in the first 1,000 days? And Kyle, I'm going to ask you to start with that one.
Yeah, so for me, it really started when my wife was pregnant. Having that time where I would kind of sing into her belly and reading stories. And, we were lucky enough to have the Family Resource Center involved at that time. And, for a first-time dad, it was so nice to have someone come in and not, you didn't feel any judgment. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what I was doing. I have a bonus daughter, my 13-year-old, but this was really my first time going through that. And so, yeah, just the skin-to-skin contact, you have to excuse me, I'm going to look at my notes too.
It's all right.
I think I had an experience where I brought my daughter to the to the doctor's office, and I can laugh about it now, but I panicked and I pulled her out of the car seat and I thought she was blue, and I ran inside and I was like, oh my gosh, and the doctor pulled me aside and they ended up bringing her to Children's Hospital. And anyway, I just, there's no blueprint for any of this. And so I just, I give myself a lot of grace, and I try to,
Like speaking to the belly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's so precious.
Yeah.
So important,
Yeah.
right? And just, being there, being present, really makes all the difference. And, I'm sure your wife appreciated that. And just the partnership. Can you speak to like the partnership in the birth of your child and what that's like for you?
Yeah. So, accompanying her to as many of the appointments as I could, being a part of that process, being in there when both my children were delivered. Trying to learn. She's a little bit more educated as far as the parenting stuff goes, and so learning from her, and it's a team effort for sure.
Did something change in you in that moment?
Yes.
A lot changed on the outside.
A lot changed, yeah.
But how about on the inside?
Yeah, I was talking a little bit before just about how you kind of wonder how a child is going to fit into your family. And you think about it like, oh, I wonder what they're going to look like. I wonder what they're going to, what their personality is going to be like. And once they come, they are so perfect and they fit perfectly, and you just can't, I can't even imagine. And then another one comes along and it's the same deal,
Right.
She's a little louder, so I couldn't see it.
You noticed the difference right away.
I couldn't see it early on, but she fit. We'll keep her. So
that's amazing. I would love to hear Xavier and Guy, you both talk about that as well. But in the interest of time, I want to ask another question, specifically around Black, Brown, and Native children. Black, Brown, and Native children continue to perform lower on reading test scores than their white peers in the U.S.
Opportunity gaps are also seen in children affected by family separation and or parent involvement in the criminal justice and family court system. These issues are seen very acutely in rural communities too. When it comes to language and literacy development, what are some ways fathers in your community are helping their children build these skills? Guy, I'll start with you.
Now you guys see what we got notes, right? These questions. No, I actually had to prepare to be able to answer honestly. But I think, you know, and I go back and forth from being a practitioner and working with fathers from what I know and have heard from them, and I think about my own experiences in terms of my decades of working with dads, but also know that fathers, they contribute to the literacy by incorporating storytelling, you know, the reading routines. A lot of dads like to just read with their kids. Sometimes they don't even know exactly what they're reading, so sometimes they have to interpret what the photographs say to get that information to their children, or sometimes they do, and they can do it in a way that they feel comfortable with. But I also know they also like to talk about family history and culture, right? And tell stories, right?
Traditions.
And traditions, right? And I can think about, I'm so nostalgic that I've, you know, unfortunately, my family history, I learned a lot about it as I got older. But when I was younger, I didn't know much other than what my mother would tell me, things that she would share with me. And so I took that on. I did the same with my children. And it makes me think about some of the things he was saying earlier is that, you know, in those first couple of years, your child's brain is growing the most. We all know that for those of us that do early child education. That's when it's growing the most. And personalities are formed, you know, early on. But also, too, it's a bonding for fathers. If you happen to have access and lucky enough to have access, particularly with the men I work with, and oftentimes they're low income and they don't have access. But if you have an opportunity to bond with your children through reading and storytelling and talking about culture and family traditions, I think that bond happens. Because for men, we can speak to the stomach and be connected to, you know, mom in terms of, you know, when she goes through prenatal care and, you know, get excited because we're all pretty excited in the beginning, right? We all are. And we know if we're working with folks and couples and having babies, when you're in the beginning, everything is all good. I mean, for the most part. And you're like, well, yeah. Well, I know for me, this child is going to bring some structure to my life, right? Some structure, some purpose, right? But I realize for those of us in the audience, children don't bring structure. They bring stress.
They bring stress.
Right? So
no structure, no stress.
None of that. So I think about, you know, continuing to love to talk about the heritage, love to talk about the history, but love to bond because we don't get an opportunity to carry the baby, to nurse the baby, you know, to have those things in terms of bond with the baby. So our bonding really comes after the baby's here and spending time with the baby, interacting with the baby, and communicating with the baby. And that's where the bond connects for what I've heard from men who I've worked with as well as for myself too.
Yeah, I'm so glad you talked about bonding because, you know, that starts at birth, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about, Kyle, just the skin to skin, and you know there's some sayings that men are not nurturing, you know, and we're very nurturing. We just nurture a little bit differently, and you know all of those interactions that you just named are ways in which we bond with our children, and the bond that we have is equally as important as the bond that they have with their birth mom as well. And so just acknowledging that bonding piece in fatherhood is so critical and important. Yeah, you look like you want to say something else.
Yeah, because I mean, the connection that you end up having, I mean, lots of times, and I know you're going to get to this question too about what some of the assumptions is that, you know, dads, they just care so much and they want to do so much, but they can only do what they've been trained to do, or they've been educated to do, or have the skills to do, but you can't measure what their heart really wants and really pushes them to do. Exactly. And so we don't always understand that until we have an opportunity to talk with them, especially in the work that I've done. Even for myself, I was 15 when she got pregnant, 16 when he was born, and I had no clue about anything other than I had no frame of reference, and I wanted to do better. What that mean or what that meant, I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to be there. And so I remember one time, and I know we're short for time, but I remember one time I was a single dad, teen dad, and I remember one day, and I had custody of my son at 16, and he was just crying and crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. I'm reliving it as I'm talking about it, crying and crying. And I didn't know what to do, and so my mom she was gone because she helped me take care of him in the early days before I moved out. I remember I called her. I said, I don't know what to do. She was like, is he hungry? I said, I don't know. Is he tired? I don't know. Is he sleepy? I don't know. Is he wet? I don't know. She said, so I try all these things. And so I tried all those things and kept crying and crying and crying. And I didn't know what to do. So I just said, I'm going to cry with him. So I started crying. We both started crying. We just both started crying. And all of a sudden, he stopped crying.
Right, exactly.
Stopped crying.
Amazing.
And I was like, there was something about this connection, a further bond that I had with him that I felt that connection to. So
Yeah, no, that's good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are running out of time, but Xavier, I do want to hear just your response to that question about, literacy in your community.
Yeah, so touching a little bit more on, it's true, children, reading to them, telling family stories, sharing cultural traditions, that is very important for them to feel that sense of belonging to their culture and community. But I also want to touch base on when it comes like our pressure as BIPOC folks parenting, right? And how, for example, when my wife and I, we mostly speak Spanish because that's my wife's language and she's learning English. And when we go to a restaurant, right, and it's just the fact of like having our kids running around and we are always like kind of like being afraid of like having this interactions with other people of like, tell your kids to behave or whatever, right? And those things, is something that we feel that pressure differently just because we're BIPOC folks that we're parenting and we are speaking another language. And I'm always afraid of like someone interacting with my wife in a different language because she don't know how to defend them. Like there's all this pressure that is put on us as people of color, communities, but it's embedded too in our culture. Like when you see parents picking up their kids from school, Latina parents will usually be like, hey, to the teacher, how did they behave, right? Yeah. But we don't ask the questions like, what did they learn? Like when we have the meetings with teachers, what did they learn, what are they working on? We might receive that information from teachers because like that's on the schedule, but we go straight to how are they behaving? Right? And when we talk to our kids, it's like, how do you behave today? No, what do you learn? Like what? So that is also embedded in our, like, we need to behave. And that is a pressure that we feel everywhere we go. And even though we work on those literacy components, we cannot lose from perspective that, and I'm gonna cite my notes here because I don't wanna miss anything here. We also, our work and our progress might seem a lot slower since we're still fighting against inequitable access to resources, systemic racism and discrimination like bias in the curriculums, socioeconomic inequalities, early childhood education barriers like limited access to high quality preschools, disparities in parental support opportunities like work demands, historical trauma and cultural erasure, and linguistic and assessment biases like how standardized tests are often designed around white middle class norms. And our progress might seem slower because of that, right? And we have that extra work that we need to do. And this is what we're trying to do at Centro Tyrone Guzman, having the only Latina Montessori school in the state that work with low-income immigrant kids, and they come to our school with scholarship to give them access to that high-quality education for kids that are 3 to 6 years old. And as a side note, a couple of weeks ago, we brought the only American International Montessori trainer that does the training in Spanish and does it cultural specific for Latinas in the whole United States. Wow. Right?
Wow.
Just only one. And we brought it to we brought her to Centro Tyrone Guzman because that's our commitment with our Latina kids in our community. That's what they need. So it's we can talk about this all day.
I know, right? It's like we need more time.
That's right.
But you talk about systems now, and how systems can better support fathers and children, as a matter of fact. And so, thank you for moving us into that area. But I want to ask Kyle and Guy, in the interest of time, and then I think we'll try to take some questions. But how can early childhood systems such as health, social service, family court and business, partner more effectively with fathers, and how can all of us honor the expertise and contributions of fathers in better ways? And I just want to honor the expertise that you all brought today. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I can go ahead and jump in. So part of my work professionally is supporting people that are navigating the justice system. Child protection is a big one. And, you know, my experience was very different than a lot of the people that I support. And, you know, we were privileged enough to be able to afford an attorney. You know, that's not something that's offered to everybody. The lack of supports, and I'm from Western Wisconsin, so it's a little bit different. But, you know, there's just not a lot of supports for the family, for the father that are navigating those systems, you know. And so a lot of times families are separated instead of trying to keep the family together and support the family.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Guy.
Yeah, this is one of the things I think is part of the fellowship I received from the Bush Foundation that I wanted to engage in terms of changing systems, particularly as it relates to working with fathers in general. So what I've learned is that the systems, first of all, they need to take into consideration what he wants to do and what he can do, what he's able to do, and what skills he needs to be able to navigate these systems. But they need to talk to one another. They need to be integrated because the father's needs are so many or so much in terms of things that he needs to be able to learn and understand, but more importantly, navigate, right? And the systems need to be more intertwined, and they need to communicate with one another and based on education, based on early child education, based on parent education, based on employment, corrections. I mean, just a number of different systems. They need to be integrated with one another because they need to be talking to one another on behalf of this individual, because he's not always sure how to even talk with them initially, let alone multiple ones. So they need to be able to be connected, be integrated, and almost be a one-stop shop in a sense to help him navigate through that. So one of the things that we did over the many years in providing services to men who wanted to be involved in the life of their kids, both emotionally and financially, we had a ton of services under one roof, even though they're provided by different service providers, but they're all in one location. So it's kind of like not so much down the street, but down the hall. So you can, once you learn to navigate that on a smaller scale, then you can begin to develop the skills and the knowledge and education needed to be able to do it on a larger scale.
Absolutely. Being integrated, I think at NAS we're working really hard to make sure we're offering a seamless experience for our scholars and our families. And Ariel, who I want to shout out, Ariel, she's been doing an amazing job working with our staff on that. But it's so important that, you know, parents and children are able to anticipate the next step.
That's right.
When they are getting their needs met, right? And that's not always possible. Some families have more privilege than others in making that happen. But as much as we as a system can come together and be integrated and be seamless for families and children, then we are setting children up for success. And so, are we done? Or do we have time to close? All right.
All right.
Sorry you can't ask us questions. But we're so delighted.
Can I, for the sake of time, can I do one thing really quickly? Some of the men I have had the pleasure to work with over decades of doing the work are here. I'm pretty sure you guys may have some representatives in the audience as well, but I just want to acknowledge some program graduates who learned those systems, who learned to succeed, to learn to be better fathers, who now are economically stable, who are now emotionally stable and involved in the life of their kids. So I'm going to have a couple of my graduates stand up. If you guys over there, y'all would stand up, the citizen fathers, you guys stand up, you guys stand up. They've learned it, so I just want to acknowledge them. Sorry.
Well, while we're celebrating, let's celebrate this great panel. So in closing, I can't offer more commentary. I think we've heard some rich conversation today, but we want to thank NPR, all of our speakers today. Gevonee Ford, give it up for him again. We want to thank our Lieutenant Governor, Mayor Carter, and all attendees for giving their time and coming together to think about how to harness the power of partnership to elevate and support fathers, grandfathers, and parents and their important roles in connection and early literacy. But don't forget to fill out the feedback survey. Take just a few minutes, if you will, using the QR code on the screen to share your thoughts, and even let us know how and if you'd like to partner with Little Moments Count, or specifically on the topic of father support and engagement, and if you want to contact any of our panelists. Also, if you haven't already, please like Little Moments Count and Early Risers on social media, as well as sign up for our newsletter and stay connected. Thank you so much, everyone. I think we are done for today. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you.